Hello, my name is Max Noxon. I'm a principal solution consultant with Dialpad. I'm going to give you a quick tour of Dialpad and some of the features that we offer. Today I'm working on a Macintosh. I've got the Dialpad desktop installed. I've got my iPhone on the right-hand side. Our solution is fully compatible with Windows and Mac, Android and iOS, so pretty much any device you're going to work on, we can function. We also have our application browser based, so in this case it's Chrome. If you use Microsoft Edge, our solution set will work there as well. Just to give you a little tour of the Dialpad application. So top right, I've got my name, I've got my phone number that's assigned to me when my Dialpad account is created. If you have extensions in your organization, we can support those as well. I've got a bunch of different phone numbers here, all of which are exciting. But let's point out that I can have a couple personal numbers assigned to me. I can also be part of other groups like an office main line or like a call center number or anything like that. So this will change based on the user and what they have access to. Also, I have Dialpad Meetings account that's given with every single user. That's a light version. If you want to upgrade to the paid version, there's a lot more features that are included with that. Across here, I have my inbox and a quick start guide. Now, the quick start guide is really nice because it gives new users a chance to kind of walk through a bunch of steps and make sure that they get their Dialpad account set up correctly, like their voicemail password and things like that. We provide a lot of context there, so emails out and welcome letters and all the elements you would need to bring your staff on board easily. Now this inbox here has a few things in it, and I'll just point out a couple before we move on. So I have this voicemail tab here. Now I've got this call from Lapine, Oregon. It was actually a spam call, somebody telling me my car's warranty is expired. I rejected it, marked it as spam, never got a call from him again. But in doing so, I actually got the voicemail transcription in real time as it was being left in my voicemail box, and I could read that message, and I could actually choose to call them back or SMS them. It's a great little feature, and it talks a lot about how transcription and acting off of that transcription is one of the key elements that brings Dialpad's usability so high and is a tremendous value to your knowledge workers and to your staff. We, of course, allow call recordings for any account in our platform, retention policy to your company's preferences. All of our numbers in the US are SMS and MMS enabled. I can also chat internally with the team. We have faxing. It's a nice little light faxing program. It comes embedded inside the Dialpad desktop. You don't need another browser window. You have to log in anywhere. But let's talk about a few elements here. So I've got this contact here, Max Damonummer. There's a lot going on in the screen. So let me show you. I've got a quick transcript of the last call I made with that user. I could actually scroll up and look at all the calls over time and get a feel for what's happening. I also have my contact information synced. So in my case, we use Google Workspace, and I've got this contact synced to my Google Contacts. Any edit I make here will push up and down to my Google Contacts. So if I make a change up there or down here, either way it gets reflected. That also works perfectly well for Office 365 users and Outlook. So think of the two systems as parity in terms of what I can show you. I've got some competition elements here. I can say, listen, what are some key indicators from this particular user? Do I have any action items that need to be completed? Give me some summary of my past calls. This is our VI language and our NLP engine really working hard to produce value for your end users. Plus I have, as I mentioned earlier, my calendar events synced in. I've got emails synced in and documents as well. So any interactions I have with this particular user are going to be presented to me inside the Dialpad window. We also sync all of our calls and activities into Salesforce and Zendesk and HubSpot, just to name a few. So OCRM and Microsoft Dynamics and a bunch of others. We have like dozens and dozens of other integrations, but only a few of them are actually built inside the Dialpad desktop. So what I can do then is place a quick call out and show you what it looks like when I receive a call in to the Dialpad space. And what's really nice here is there's going to be a lot happening. So first off, I have this little toaster pop, this little guy right here that will show up if I have Dialpad Desktop installed and lets me know that, that I have an incoming call. So if I'm not staring at Dialpad, I'll be able to get it. I can go ahead and answer that call. And in doing so, a lot is going to happen all at once. So let me just take you on a quick tour of this. So first off, transcription enabled by default, running in the background. I can reference it during the call, but I can also use it later. For example, if I were to think, I talked to this individual the other day and we mentioned, was it jelly beans? And I'm trying to find out, did we have a phone call where we talked about it? I can quickly go look across the organization, across all the things that I'm part of, and actually show that. So notice here I've got like Max coaching team, I've got Max main, that's a queue that I'm part of. I've got a department number that happens as well. And also our meeting software, if the transcription is turned on, we're going to show any meetings that might have that particular word in it. And this of course includes SMS and MMS and chat messages between the two individuals. So a couple other elements here. I can turn VI off or on again. I can even enable call recording. What's nice about call recording is we'll play an audio prompt that'll let both parties know that the call is being recorded. That satisfies any legal requirements. Regular call controls across the board. The one thing I want to point out is transfer. You remember how my contact and my calendar were synced in? So Keith, for example, is actually in a do not disturb mode, whereas Chris is actually in a meeting. So is the other Chris. But if I click his profile, I can actually perform several actions. I can do a attended or unattended transfer, warm or cold transfers, straight to VM, always an option. And then of course I can put it on hold. And that way he can pick it up on whatever device he has, a mobile client, desktop client, web client, desk phone, whatever you have. We can do three-way calling. I could chat with them in real time, say hello. They can send me a hello back, how's it going? So these are things that you can do to leverage real-time communication and build value to your end users and your customers so that they can feel like every interaction is full of merit. Plus, we're sort of logging all this stuff in real time across the way. And in fact, I have a live call right now going and matched to this particular contact inside of Salesforce. And I didn't have to do anything at all in the background. It's quite nice. So on the mobile client, I can actually do some remote controlling. I could mute or unmute it, but I can actually take this call and switch it to my device. And this will seamlessly switch over the call away from the desktop client into mobile. I can even slide that little purple bar at the top, slide that over to engage a carrier call. So I could use my cell phone number as the back end voice path rather than just like data or Wi-Fi, which is how the call is presented now. Notice call recording and transcription still sustains. You're going to see all that information as it's being said, and I can switch it back to this device. Great set of options here, really seamless, easy to use, visually cohesive for your end users. It's quite lovely. I can flag a little snippet of the call if I wanted to, but I'm just going to hang up and do two more things. I can rate the call, and this call rating allows your end users to communicate back to Dialpad if there's any problems with the audio. The key thing here is that if they check that box, it's going to open a ticket with our support team. We're going to pull at just a huge amount of logs and really look at the call in detail and work with that end user or even your IT team to resolve that issue. Now, I won't do that because our team gets mad at me when I do that. So a couple other things here to think about. I mentioned departments and call centers, and if I'm part of a department, if I'm an operator, somebody in that department, I can actually take calls, I can do messages, I can even message out from this number or place outbound calls from that number. So I could say, I don't want to call as me, I want to call as that department, and there's a couple numbers. Let me choose the 541 number, right? So I have this nice control that I can execute and operate in different spaces. And I can do that all on my cell phone as well. So I could actually place an outbound call, not as me, but I might say, oh, I'm going to choose that number for my outbound call on my cell phone. So lots of nice features built into the tool that make it easy to interact. Okay, same thing goes for queues. Everything else is kind of add-on features, which may or may not be relevant. So let me show you what happens on the back end. Sound good? So on the back end, we get this call summary. So after a call is completed, we are able to produce a little summary of the call and look at some really interesting information here. So I have all kinds of things going on. I can see who's calling, I can listen to the call, I can look at the transcript in real time as it's going. I can then say, I would like to see when that call was positive and negative and who triggered those two statements and where in the call was that happening. Our system also identifies like interesting questions. It identifies like swear words. But think of it this way, we're able to take that text and that audio and then action off of that. We can then say, in the case of like a call center agent, if there was a question about security, we can figure out who said it and when and how many times that was triggered to the agent. And all this becomes really interesting and reportable data. Okay, a couple other things. I can share these out if I want to. I can add them to a playlist if I want to use them for reviews or internal staffing issues or like, hey, this is a great way to handle a customer objection. We can also expand and offer a scorecard and grade that call. Now, this is unique for call center and cell licenses, but we're really trying to provide a lot of content for your team to manage these calls. Of course, I can search for it, things like that. Okay, analytics. So I've got this office here, the SE office. I'm part of a large organization, and I can look at all the calls in this office over time. So this is a 30-day stretch. I can look at all the calls that happened during that stretch. I can get some details on inbound versus outbound, missed versus connected. I can get a look of the meetings habits if we have any going on, what devices we're using, are we internal, external, and then a leaderboard, and then more information about the meetings as well. So there's a lot of tabs and data here to think about. And I can filter these based on like date range. I could look for like a particular word, like, show me some swearing moments. And I want to see the calls where there was swearing in the last 30 days. I could also limit that to internal, external calls or whatever I like. Okay. The other thing that is really critical here is looking at call center. So I'll be real quick on this. I can get a call center, and I have just a ton more information about this particular call center that involves a lot of this, including like automated callbacks, if that's the feature you want to leverage, our SLA alerts and queue size, and this is all part of your metrics and your KPIs for the queue, and of course the leaderboard of the agents. But here's some fun things, like I can go to heat maps and I can take a look at calls over that date range that are going to be, do I have a high call volume at that date and time? And do I have high answer times? Well, for this queue, that's a high answer time. So I have something that was going on here that needs to be addressed. We do a lot of other things like SLA violations and how often texts are used and agent status and all these things. We can do call dispositions, which is great. We can do CSAT surveys, voice and text based. If there's an IVR menu, we can do this for any IVR menu in the system. If there's that on the front, we can report on which buttons are pressed. It's really quite nice. Last little bit on just analytics. If you happen to have a call center, you can, of course, get a wallboard set up that's based on the call center itself and all the stats that we have around that. So some really great tools for your supervisors and admins. Okay, I want to show you a couple things on admin and setup, and we'll stop there. So I can administer a lot of different settings in my office, including like the address and who's an administrator, and adding and removing office administrators are really, really easy. As mentioned, I can have a company admin or I can have an office admin, but that same office admin could be an office admin in several offices. It's quite nice. Adding users, super easy. We can actually automate this through like Google or Okta or Skim or Microsoft Azure. So there's a lot of different elements here that you can do, but adding a user is kind of a couple steps. So I can go look for test. I can look for a user that doesn't have a license. I've got this email address. I can pick the SKU that I want to give them. I'm out of pooled numbers. So what I can do is go grab Dialpad's pool. So if there's any 5-for-1 numbers in the area, then I'll look for it. I'll grab a number and do that. And as soon as I hit add, they'll get an email, that welcome email, and they'll be off to the races. So adding, removing, and modifying users, super easy to do. If you have desk phones are really easy to work with. So once they're deployed, you want to manage like the line mappings and what goes on here and there. You can add a speed dial, or you can add a Dialpad meetings number. In this case, it'd be for mine. I click update device, it'll refresh, and you're off to the races. So great controls there. Departments. So departments, as I mentioned, are like a catch-all for lots of different things. So I can manage how voicemails and faxes are added to this. I can manage the numbers that are attached to this department, or it doesn't have to have a number. It could have come off of another department. Like you could have an IVR in one section and then the group here. But I can figure out who these assigned operators are for this group, and I can add people and remove them with just a click of a button. I can also manage the call routing. So I can define when am I going to take calls, if it's a specific time, date and times I want to do that. And then during those times, I can modify the open and closed hour routing depending on how I want to do it. In this case, I have it going to an IVR, and I have a bunch of menus here. And then if I have a greeting and then open hours, and then I can set my ring duration, I can set my queue language if I wanted to. I can have custom hold music, and I can do a custom voicemail greeting as well. If I didn't want to do that, and I said, I just wanted to ring my operators, I could just go there. So it's all really easy to change. And of course, I can do the same thing for closed hours and specify how that's going to work. The second thing I can do is now configure those for each individual holiday. So for each day, I can define what that call flow is going to be and what that greeting's like. I can default whether or not transcription is turned on. I can modify my integrations So let's say we have Salesforce set up and I want to modify how that's going to work. I can just go in here, configure that, make a couple changes, and then it's live in production. Of course, I can do some advanced settings where I can specify emails where the voicemail is going to be delivered. If there's multiple DIDs in that department, which one do I want to use? A lot of different elements here. So I barely scratched the surface of admin and analytics and user, functionality. I hope that was enough to give you what you need.